10% luck, 20% skill, 15% concentrated power of will, 5% pleasure, 50% pain, and 100% reason to remember the name.
So you might have heard this term floating around the internet recently, and if you haven't, here's a screenshot. So what's the John Green effect? Well, we all know who John Green is, right? If you don't, you're probably one of the only people in the universe who hasn't heard of him. He's a YA author. He's very famous in circles even outside of young adult writing, and his most recent book, The Fault in Our Stars, is a huge international bestseller. It's critically acclaimed from all quarters, and it's about to be turned into a movie. But the John Green effect that people talk about on the internet concerns the way that he's received by critics, as well as the wider audience. See, The Fault in Our Stars has been so well received by so many different critics and audiences that it's actually starting to raise a few eyebrows. There are people who aren't quite content just to say that The Fault in Our Stars is a great book. They've got to go further and then say that John Green has single-handedly brought credibility to the entire genre of teenage fiction. So this becomes a problem when you consider a few things. Okay, first of all, there have been authors before John Green, most of them female, who have just found a level of popularity and commercial success beyond all of our wildest dreams. These authors are ignored though, because the works aren't complex or clever or serious. We're talking books like Harry Potter, Twilight, The Hunger Games, Divergent, worldwide phenomena, but ignored in this case. According to the critics and other commentators, these books belong in a different category. These are not just normal YA books. They've been called kiddie lit or sparkly vampire fiction. Other sorts of vaguely derisive categories that they make up to drop all of these into the not to be taken seriously basket. John Green, however, writes good YA. So he writes none of that fantasy or magic kid stuff, right? His stuff is truly young adult fiction, say the critics. And it's at the point now where other YA authors who write similar genre of YA, but might even have been published before The Fault in Our Stars was published, they're having their work credited to the influence of John Green. So yes, according to many outsiders, there's crappy teen fiction and there's John Green fiction. That's the John Green effect. Things get complicated when people start to notice that John Green is a white heterosexual male. Whereas the tentpole authors that came before him were all mostly women writing for teenage girls, right? So obviously they don't count as real writers. The John Green effect has become a bit of a catch-all reference to the way women and writers that deviate from the default sort of get swept under the rug and pushed to the sidelines and sort of can only ever aspire to be as good as John Green is. So I have to note that none of this is actually John Green's fault. The guy is salt of the earth, right? He's got a brilliant social conscience and he cares about his fans, and he's the last guy who deserves to be the poster boy for a sort of institutionalized sexism slash racism slash whatever for the entire industry. But we are where we are. He was marked that way by other people, not by himself. He can't help the way that critics and commentators have latched onto him and fallen so hard in love with him, but they did, and now here we are. Agree or disagree, that's what the John Green effect's all about. Expect to see more references to this as the movie gets closer to coming out, and whether or not you think it fair, at least you know what it is.